home today, and I'm gonna play my base building game, Planet Base, which I've been enjoying. And I watched a couple YouTube videos on it, and Tiny Pirate, who's very amusing, and watching him play, it didn't exactly illuminate things for me precisely, but it helped me to think about my previous base failures, basically. And so I just want to, I'm not at 300 yet, so I'm not at the final goal of population of 300, but I feel like it's, I feel like I'm almost there. Like I feel like I've got the right strategy, and I've kind of corrected for all the mistakes that I made before. So let me take you to where this began. And what I ended up doing actually is I ended up picking specific coordinates on the planet so I could keep iterating on the same place and get to know it better. Where am I? I'm over here, there we go. And so on this planet I did 50 north, 50 west, and it kept coming back to the same place. I don't know if that's a random seed or what, but that was actually really helpful for iterating, because the first 3 or 4 times I played, I picked whatever the random thing was that it gave, and it was a lot harder for me to iterate and kind of hone my strategy. So when I started, the spaceship was like right around here where the security station is, and so I started in this corner, and I built the following Tiny Pirate's advice, doing the large power collector just up front, not a small one, just doing a large one, which was totally the right thing to do, and a large solar panel is what I did, and then a medium water extractor. And basically having these 3 things set up with these sizes at the very beginning, your initial build out will be slower, but if you build out faster and you don't have enough water or energy, you're going to keep running out of those resources, and everyone's going to die. So that's the kind of first thing to do. And then I made a medium oxygen generator, so going for the medium instead of just the small, and then building out to do the canteen. The ship, when you start, already has some food on it, so you just need a canteen to get things started. And then what did I do? Right, and then I did a large biodome, I guess. I'm not sure. Yeah, I did a large biodome and planted only 2 plants, 1 starch and 1 regular. So like tomatoes and rice, for instance. And then started, so I did that. I went out this way, and then I went out this way. Basically looking at the edges here, kind of working backwards, and going like, okay, well, along the edges is where I'm going to have the kind of, is where I'd prefer to have the units that can, only be placed at the end. With the dorm or the cabin and the sick bay, those can only have 1 interior connection, which means that they're going to be a dead end. So I kind of look at the edges of this map and go like, okay, I want to try to optimize so that my cabins and my medical bays, which are necessary, by the way, people need to sleep, eventually they'll need to get healed. Just checking on the happiness of my people, make sure I'm not ignoring them while explaining this. So so I built out this way, canteen, then the food, and then I built out this way. I built a lab so I can make meat, again, to fill the canteen with food so people can eat. And then the reason I built out that way was so I could have one hop and then the last hop was going to be the first cabin, or the first dorm, or what is it called? Yeah, dorms are the ones with the bunk beds. Cabins are the luxury ones with only one bed. Alright, so some fugitives are calling me. I'll talk about those in a second. And that was my first build, and that was kind of my first build out. And I don't want to repeat too much about what Tiny Pirate says, just because he did a good job. But I think the next thing that I did was, once people were not hungry and had gotten some sleep, I started looking at what was going to be necessary to get to self-sufficiency, which is one of the goals. So if I press L1, I go to the little toolbars there. I can go to milestones. So there's survive for 1 day. That's pretty easy. And then there's self-sufficiency. So you need a bioplastic processor, a metal processor, a meal maker, a mine, and a biodome. So I built my meal makers in my canteen here up pretty early. I had my biodome. So then what I did is I built some bioplastic processors in a processing plant. Originally, this processing plant was both bioplastic and steel processors mixed together, or ore processors mixed together. But as I expanded, I kind of specialized them so that when I boost them, I'm boosting a very specific thing. So I built the bioplastic processor because I already had a plant that was generating starch. So that was just being stockpiled, so I got that started. And then I went up here and I built a mine that was connected to this. I ended up selling that mine and moving it over a little bit so I could expand over here later. But I built a mine, and then once I had a mine with some ore, I added an ore processor. And then once I had that going, I built a factory. And the first thing I built was, these are all semiconductors now, which is funny. But the first thing I did was built a spares. Basically, as your batteries, see, like, in fact, this one's being fixed right now by a robot. Your solar panels and your power collectors, your batteries, and your everything will break down over time. And it's that little gear icon in the lower left, in the upper right kind of inventory there. And you have a few when you start, but you will things will quickly start to break down. And if you don't have the spare parts to fix them, then, like, if your battery goes away, well, then if you only have one battery, you're screwed. That's how all your lights will go out and your people will die, because your oxygen generator needs some energy to get by. Same thing with the solar panel. So I built a spares factory, a spares foundry in here initially. Yeah, spares workshop. And so that was the first things that I did. Just to reiterate, I made my oxygen generator. Start over again. I made my large power collector. I made my large solar panel. I made my medium water extractor. I made my medium oxygen generator. Originally, the airlock was right off of that oxygen generator. I ended up, for expansion purposes, I got rid of that and then pushed out the airlock further. Next thing was I built a canteen to use the existing food resources off of the ship. And then I built a large biodome with just a couple of things, like one starch and one regular thing. You don't need to build any. You don't need to build the medicinal pad off the bat. You've got some first aid kits in the ship already, and people don't really start to get injured until a little bit later. The games are relatively lenient. If you build too many food things at once, you don't actually have very many biologists up front when you first land with your first crew of 7 or whatever it is. So you need to make it so that they can service all the plants and the plants don't die and stuff like that. But also, a biologist is the only person who can also make meat. So a general thing I figured out after my first half dozen colonies failed, one of them got to 200 something and then failed, is while there are some kind of speedrun trophies, I've given up on trying to figure out how to get those, and I haven't found any videos or guides on how to do that. You basically just have to take it easy and just take it kind of day by day and slowly increase things and see what happens, see if people get too tired, monitor if you click L3 here, you can see what people's happiness level is. That's the kind of yin-yang symbol in the upper left there. And they're excellent right now. Their welfare is 94%, which is pretty good. You need to keep a really, really, really close eye in the upper right, that inventory screen, on the vegetables and the meat and the meals. That's those first 3 icons. If those start to dip below, depending on the size of your colony, those start to dip below a certain level, you need to slow down, build more food, build more meat, and make sure that you are feeding people appropriately. That's food and oxygen and water are if you screw up on those, it's amazing how quickly your entire colony can die, they start to die so fast, and then the order in which they die, like the roles that they die in, like the biologists might all die first, and then you can't make any more food, and then you're dead. Or your workers your medics might all die, and then if someone gets injured, eventually they'll die, and then you're dead before you build the landing pad. So I found just taking it a little bit easy and not being so conservative with building the individual modules out, but being conservative with building out what is in the modules. So when I built the canteen at first, I had one table and one meal maker and one drinking fountain, and that was it. And when I built out the biodome, I had one starch, rice, and one tomato plant, and that was it. And then when I built out the first processing plant, I had just one bioplastic processor, and that was it. Because when you start out, you only have 7 people or something, so and a couple of robots, and they aren't going to be able to do very much at once, anyways. So that's kind of the initial setup, and then that got me to the self-sufficiency pretty quickly. Go over here and do some trading just in case I can buy a gun. Guns do become important later in the game. Do not buy them early in the game. They're like health. You will only need them later in the game. And I'm good on steel. And I have way too much bioplastic, so I'm going to sell 17 of that to get me down to 150. And I'm going to sell 4 of my health things. One thing, by the way, in this trading interface that I didn't realize at first is that so as I kind of push right on the D-pad to push things onto the ship that I have, so I have 12 or I have 15 of these medicinal plants stockpiled up, but I got 54 health kits, which is a very large number. So for these medicinal kits, these medicinal plants, if I press right on the D-pad, that's me selling it to the trading ship. But if you notice when I press right on the D-pad, just below this box with all the items, there's 3 numbers. There's 2,888. That's how much money I currently have. And then the next number to that is how much money the trader is ultimately going to give me. So, whoops. Let me do it. 1 second. So let me just go back to 0 here. So right now there's 2 numbers. There's 2,810. That's how much money I have. And then the number on the right is how much money that the trader has. So I'm going to buy a gun. And now I owe the trader 112. I'm going to get rid of some bioplastic, which is worth 10 space bucks a piece. So I'm going to give him, or give her, or whatever, give them, so I'm going to give them 11. And notice that I still owe them 2, but because I'm buying a gun but giving them 11 things, that's 110 versus 112. Since I give them 12, that number flips up there at the bottom. Now they're going to pay me 8 because I've given them enough bioplastic that totally offsets the cost of me buying the gun. Cool. So I'm going to give them 17. But there's that number on the far right down there, which is 45. They have to give me. And I'm going to sell some of my medicinal plants. Notice how the number just went yellow? So at 98, they're going to pay me 98. And then if I do one more, they're going to pay me 103. What that means is, and the number on the right is 0, they've run out of money to give me. I can offload more crap to them, but they aren't going to pay me anymore. I was not paying attention and did not realize that in some of my first playthroughs. And so basically you want to sell, unless you're really trying to offload stuff, if your warehouses are full or whatever. If your warehouses are full, build more warehouses. But so I'm going to sell just 4 of my medicinal plants. I want to sell more, but I don't want to. I want to get money for them. I don't need to offload them. My warehouses are full. Uh-oh, somebody died. Why is that? Asteroid hit this, and when the asteroid hit, someone was in there, and so they got killed. And so a bot's going to come and repair this at some point. I hope. That is strange. Why is there no... Let me slow this down. I'm going to see what happens here. This should get repaired. There they go. There's the bot repairing it. Great. So, asteroids, I don't know if the game is lenient about it, but I've never had an asteroid wipe me out really early in the game. One of the reasons I end up building in this grid pattern here is that if any one of these hallways gets messed up, except at these leaf nodes, there's a path for oxygen to the rest of the grid. And I'll talk more about placing oxygen things in a second. I'm going to build some more solar. I'm going to do this. I'm going to disable all non-essential things for a second. And what do I want to do here? That's what I'm going to do for now. And then I'm going to R1 and then I'm going to prioritize this work. once that gets done. So I turned off all the non-essential items on my grid just so these batteries can charge up. I am in a borderline. I've chosen a bad time to stream this and explain this because I was in a thing where a little energy starved. So I'm generating 902 watts or 919, 942 between solar panels and wind turbines. I've got 177,500 battery energy storage from the batteries. But the game does this later in the game. Basically, windmills don't generate not less, but they generate things in bursts. Like the weather patterns become less predictable. And so if you haven't built out your energy storage and reasonably or enough, and you don't have a diversity of wind and solar spread out, you will have the problem that I'm having. It's not the end of the world necessarily. And I'm just waiting for my energy storage to get up to close to higher capacity. So at 150, I'll re-enable the non-trivial things. So while the power is out, while I've disabled the non-essential light things purposefully, my people are going to get unhappy because the canteen is closed, the gym is closed, the bar is closed, etc. So you can't leave it off for too long. People will start to get unhappy. They won't be able to get drinks. They won't be able to go to sleep, I think. But you can see my bots and my workers here are getting the word out here. So there's only 4 pending steel things here. I'm going to speed this up for a second just so I can see this get finished, and then I'll continue on my explanation of my seemingly winning strategy. It'd be really funny if everything goes to shit while I'm explaining my winning strategy. That would be hilarious. Oh shit, yeah, I'm so screwed. Alright, so I'm going to re-enable, everything. So notice my meals are way down because I had the power out, and so, yeah. So, but this will get built here in a second because all the resources are there. There's the builder bot coming to do it. So once that solar is there during the day, I think that'll help push me over so that in the next day cycle, I'll be generating enough that structures are low on oxygen. Why is that? Airlock is low on oxygen. Why is that? Let's see, that is an excellent repair. That is an excellent repair. That is an excellent repair. This happened to me before. Parts of my base just started to not have great amounts of oxygen, and I was at a loss for what to do. Except I guess add more oxygen. So what I want to do here, so I have an oxygen here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this robot thing here. I'm going to sell this, and I'm going to replace it with an oxygen. And what sucks, one annoying thing about this game is sometimes you can build on top of these spare parts, and sometimes you can't. And so you have to wait for the robots to take them away before you can build stuff. But it's not always the case. Sometimes it's fine. There's a few annoying things about this game, and that is one of them. The other one is, at this same spot, I had this same problem where, why does this part of the thing not have enough oxygen? Is it the population? They kind of mentioned that. Yeah, see, this dorm also is having trouble, probably because of the number of people that are in it at once. So once enough of these things go away, I should be able to build an oxygen thing here. Come on, robots. And let's see if my solar panel is serving its purpose. Yeah, so we went through a night cycle and we didn't even get to half of our energy. So that's a good sign. Come on. Can you go to things the fuck out of here, please? Died of starvation. Oh, shit. Alright, so a couple things. Hilarious. So, as I'm going to show you how awesome I am with my base building prowess, of course, people start dying. So I replace that with an oxygen to get it nearer to these places that are having some oxygen trouble. Why is there oxygen trouble? I can only assume population density. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to I'll do it here actually, to landing permissions, and I'm going to turn off colonists. I don't want any more population for now. I'm kind of exceeding the limits of my base right now, and I'm going to prioritize this so that my bots go do that. So I have a food supply problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to so here's onions and tomatoes. I'm going to prioritize food generation. Looking for food places. Here's another food place. Mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. Prioritize that. So that should do me for kind of vegetables and stuff. And I'm going to go prioritize some meat type manufacturing. This is mostly medicinal tables in this lab. So I have another lab. So as I build duplicates, I kind of start to specialize them. So I can boost individual things. So here's a meat lab, and I'm going to boost that. And you can see it's already taking effect. So I had single-digit vegetables, single-digit meat, and single-digit meals, and now we're getting into the double digits there. With 208 people, until that's like in the 20s, and kind of stays there, like in the 20s without ever dipping, I'm gonna keep a really close eye on this. And I've also noticed I've slowed the game down to 1x, just so I can respond better. So you see there's a lot of people who are hungry right now. So we'll go back over here. This thing is just about ready to get built. Taking that thing. Okay, oxygen thing's built. And already, even though it's not finished, this is happier. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make any sense, because it's not actually connected yet. They haven't built the hallways yet, but that alleviates that problem. So that's nice. Airlock is low on oxygen. Okay, that's just for a second while it was being built. So once this gets built, I've had this happen before where bots can get trapped. Something to watch out for. It's only happened a couple of times, but all right. Great. So that should solve my oxygen problems. And that does get to oxygen. So oxygen determines how many people you can have in your base at once. So that's this number here, 210 out of 330. So I have a population of, I have 207 colonists and 3 visitors. That's 210. But when I was playing, I was like, I don't need another oxygen thing because I don't have enough people to warrant it. And I got people dying of starvation now, but there's not a lot else I can do to get that up to speed. I guess I could build some more meat, actually. Build more meat. And I'll say, I'm gonna look for another lab. here's another lab that is mostly meat, but some medicine. I will do 2 things. I will build another tissue synthesizer right here, and I will boost this as well. And I've got enough robots and carrier robots here that they're going to carry the vegetables and the meat around pretty fast. So, hilarious. The day I choose to stream is like the day I hit this same problem. Keep an eye on that while I'm explaining the oxygen thing still. So I just built this oxygen thing. So what I realized, a couple things. One is that you need oxygen in enough places on the grid so that if pathways get shut down or get destroyed, that there's still good, not pressurization, that's not what they call it, but each of these domes has an O2 thing. You can see that that's the second bar down there. It needs to be at 21 or 22% all the time. That's the ideal thing. It starts to fall below that, you've got too many domes for a given oxygen generator. And what I've noticed in kind of the graph basically is you have an oxygen basically at least 4 away from each other, or no greater than 4 away from each other. And I've tried to do that here. So I've got another one here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. So you need that kind of redundancy in case asteroids destroy pathways. The grid, having the grid helps. The grid has a lot of overhead because the pathways require more resources. So when I did my initial build out, I built straight this way and straight this way, and I placed my things close enough so that I could build extra links later. I can't build more links right now, but you don't have to build the links up front. You can kind of add them later. So I did my placement in a way that I could fill in those links later, so I could have this grid and have this redundancy. Let me see what I want to do here. So I've turned off colonists. I've got a lot of biologists, so I think I'm still good. And I got a lot of bots, so I'm still good. This is just going to take time for the food to grow, and for the food to grow, and then for the meat to grow, and then for the meals to bump up. So I'm going to lose some people in the meantime, but I think I'm on the right track, just in case. What is in this one? This is medicine. This is medicine, and this is mostly medicine. As I said, these after a while. So let me go find another one. Here's a good one. I'm gonna boost this. There's a trading ship. I hope it has food because I'm gonna buy some. Yep. So I'm gonna buy some meat. I'm gonna buy some meals. I'm gonna buy some drinks. Part of what happened is that when I shut off the power, people weren't harvesting things, and the meals weren't getting generated in the meal makers, and that's what really screwed me here. So you can see how kind of delicate the economy is, and that's the fun part of these games for me, anyways. So I'm buying another gun for my armory. I'll explain that later. Buying some drinks, buying some meals, buying some meats. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to buy vegetables as well. And I think I'm good on everything else right now. The game does pause when you're training, which is very nice. I like that very much. And I'm good on semiconductors. I'm good on everything basically right now. So I'm just going to do that. Let's see. I will sell more of my bioplastic. At 150, I will sell some medicinal aid kits already. And I will... Can I sell starch? Sell starch up here. No, I can't. He doesn't want any starch, or she doesn't want any starch. I'm not going to sell them. So I owe them $2 for my meal purchases. Cool. So that's going. So got people dying of starvation, but thinning out the population when you're beyond your means is not terrible. The big problem is if your mix of biologists goes down because you need them to make food. You desperately need them to make food. So what? Before I talk about that, let me just go back to the oxygen thing. So. Right, so here's where I started. Here's where the ship was, etc. So that's how I branched out initially, and there was my first oxygen. And you can see that. I'm going to turn off visitors as well because they eat food sometimes, and I can't deal with that right now. So I'm going to turn that off for now as well. So I built that initial oxygen, and once I got out to here, where I built the bar, basically some recreation because people were getting unhappy. I built another oxygen pretty quickly. Part of the reason I built the oxygen out here is because you need to kind of plan ahead as far as how am I going to expand the base so I can get the population up, right? And part of that is having enough biodomes to produce enough food, having enough canteens so enough people can eat at once, enough canteens with enough meal makers in them so enough people can eat at once, having enough dorms so enough people can sleep at once, right? It's the thing about base building. It's these nested economies, which is in constraint solving, which is I love. My brain thrives on that stuff. It's what a main part of my job is constraint solving and making sure various teams in the pipeline are being fed and nothing is piling up. But the other reason I built an oxygen thing here there's the kind of 4 hops away rule I kind of figured out as well. But the other thing is looking at, here's the bounding box. Like I could build out to here. I had a little thing back here that I've kind of used for some extra stuff. But when you have these little narrow gaps, you can only get one trail through. And that means you have a single point of failure. If an asteroid hits this, all the resources these things provide will not be reachable until it's fixed because there's no way to grid it. There's no way to have redundancy paths here. And so you don't want to put too much in these little narrow pathways. And I couldn't put any more out here. Like if I tried to place anything out here, I wouldn't be able to. Because it looks flat, but it's not. A frustrating thing with this game is that sometimes you can trick it into. Sometimes you just sit here and you move around for a while, and then eventually, like you get a link. There's no way to snap to grid, which is kind of frustrating. So when I surveyed, I kind of saw like, okay, the main way to expand out of here is through this little gap here. One mistake that I made was I had to get through that gap in a previous playthrough. I had a link of one pathway that was multiple long. And that meant that I had 2 places where if an asteroid hit, then this part of the colony was going to be cut off from resources. And that bit me in one of my playthroughs. So what I did this time is, as I got further out here toward this gap, I was like, okay, I need to have an oxygen here close to this one-way, this thing where I don't have any redundancy paths. I do have redundancy for electricity. That's what these little paths are here. This is for electricity and links to the satellites and the telescopes and what have you. But it's not for oxygen. Oxygen requires these pathways. Water also flows through these little wires here. So that was also fine. Trading ship has landed. I'm going to purchase more food to gird myself a little bit better, food and drink. And I am going to sell medicinal stuff. And I've got a good pile of money here, so I don't need to sell stuff. I'm just gonna keep doing it. Just because I've got, actually on medicinal, I probably shouldn't sell too many more, but on the bioplastic, I am swimming in bioplastic, and therefore for bioplastic and starch, I'm good to sell that for now. Cool. So I boosted my biodems in some of my labs that were focused on building meat, but I'm also buying from these traders because that's just going to help fill in that gap even faster. And you'll notice that people are not dying as much. If we go zoom in and look at the icons, people are hungry, and the orange means that some of these people are getting really close to once they have the knife and fork icon that's in the red, that's when they're about to die of starvation. But if I go look at this person here, so they're going to get a meal, so they're on their way. And if you look at the meal icon in the upper right there, that's a little dish with the heat waves coming off of it, the third icon on the top row. I'm in the double digits and it's staying there. A couple more people might die of starvation. And my mix of biologists, in contrast, in ratio to everybody else, is getting precarious. But I think we're okay. I think because I had the foresight to build a couple of 3 different landing pads, that gives enough opportunities for traders to come where I can buy food from them in a pinch like this. Same thing with steel. If you start to run out of spares, or spares which become critical, because if you can't fix stuff, you'll run out of energy and you'll die. If you run out of food, you'll run out of meals and people will die. So getting a diversity of landing pads and not just having one is a pretty important thing, just so you have a diversity of trade when you hit these little rough spots. And then building up a good war chest of cash also, so you can just buy stuff. If you don't have anything to trade, you can just buy stuff. So I started to build. So anyway, how to expand. So there's this gap here. In a previous game, I only had one kind of single path for a couple of stretches here, and that screwed me. So this time I got this one here, and then I immediately stretch out to have it be a grid. To make it work, it's a grid, but I have another single stretch here. That's what I had to do because the placement algorithm of the game wouldn't let me do anything else. But pretty immediately, I go back to having my grid, so that there's a path redundancy there for oxygen mainly, but also for robots and other stuff. So I have my oxygen here on this side of the gap, and pretty soon, pretty quickly, right after this gap, I put another oxygen as soon as I could, so that if this pathway gets shut down, there's oxygen being generated over here, and I might have a bit of a problem, but I won't be totally screwed. And then the other thing I did pretty quickly once I got over here was a way out, so that people could walk out of this airlock and potentially go in and walk into the other airlock in a pinch. That was pretty key. The other thing that I did over here, again, to offset the fact I don't have a redundant path. So oxygen was one thing, and then the other thing was water and electricity. And over here, it was really tough to get electricity going. So initially, when I built my water here, I built another landing pad. This was not a telescope at first. This was, I think, a battery, a storage thing. And then once I expanded a little bit further and had some other energy storage and energy generation things I got rid of that. I sold that and made it into a telescope. Trading ship has landed. I'm gonna buy more food. Sometimes it doesn't always put the ship into focus, which is kind of irritating. So I'm gonna buy more meat, more drink, more food, and they aren't selling meals. They're only selling the meat and the food, the meat and the vegetables and the drinks. But still good to kind of shore that up. And now that the meals are well above 20, I think that they'll stay there. So once I see it go up to 30, I think I'll open up my landing pad to colonists again, and I'm going to adjust my the mixture of my roles that I'm accepting to front load more biologists to kind of potentially overcompensate. The worst case scenario of having too many biologists. Oops. I wanted to sell stuff, but oh well. With too many biologists, and by the way, that is a faster way to get stuff, is that if you don't want to trade, if you just want to buy, it's a faster way to get the items. So that wasn't necessarily a bad thing that I did, because I have enough cash anyway. Worst case scenario is having too much of a high mix of biologists. Let me just show you. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go turn on colonist. And you can set the specialization targets, what mix of people you want. Having too many biologists, when I made my first landing target, because food is such a bottleneck, I had my biologists at 35%, my medics at 5%, and my guards at 0. Because if you're not accepting visitors, which you should not do at the beginning anyways, the worst case scenario is you generate too much food, and then you just sell it to traders, and you build up your war chest of money. That's a happy thing. And what I found, again, for the initial, when I had my initial landing pad, I had 35% biologists, and then some percentage of engineers, 5% medics, because I really only needed 1. For when my population was quite low, and then I didn't need any guards because I didn't have any security, what are these called? I didn't have any control centers yet, but also I wasn't accepting visitors, and security is only necessary. Armed security is only necessary once you have visitors. That's the only time you get a kind of marauders coming in, I believe. I hear ship landing. So let's go back to the beginning here. So make sure. So here's the food I bought, drinks and food, and people are. Again, I'm in 1x speed right now because I feel like it's a little bit delicate, and I want to be able to shore this up appropriately. Checking my energy. So I'm in the middle of the day, and I'm not at. Oh no, it's the beginning of the day. Yeah. So I'm definitely good on my energy. I added a battery. I added that big solar panel over there. So I've kind of solved that problem for now. And I'm going to, before I build out any more domes, I'm definitely going to figure out my energy build-out strategy first. I wasn't overbuilding for energy. Not overbuilding. I wasn't building enough energy as I was expanding and adding items. So adding energy isn't just about adding more domes and then using energy. As you add even individual items, those use power too. Even individual things inside of, armed intruders have been detected. Hold on a second. I'm going to go into red alert. Red alert makes it so that not only will security guards try to kill intruders, but so will colonists. And this is where, in your control centers, having an armory with guns in them is handy, because then colonists can come get a gun and help kill the intruders. So intruders have been killed. I'll get into security in a second. Sorry, I'm jumping around. It's just that's what's happening right now. And I think, okay, that's a person who's very unhappy because they just saw terrible things happen. They're going to bed, even though they aren't tired. But I guess that was stressful. Or no, do they need medical attention? That is weird. They went to the hospital, even though they're good on, I guess they got minorly injured? I don't quite understand that. There's some mysteries in this game. I do like it, but it is not perfect by any means. I am enjoying it. Buy another gun. I'm going to not sell any more medicine. I want to have a cache of at least 10 of those. I'm going to sell some bioplastic. 13. I'm going to buy some drinks. I'm going to buy some meat. Tons of meat. It's great. Oh, and I'm going to buy some meals. I think I'm out of the woods at this point. With this many meals and meat and food, I think we are basically golden. Oops, I don't want to buy a lot right now. Yeah, no, I'm good on box. So I'm gonna. Looks like the intruders take care of it. I'm gonna go back to green alert. Red alert makes it so that the security and the medical staff don't go to sleep, and that means they will get tired and cranky, and their welfare will go down. And eventually, I mean, you can have people die of lack of sleep. That can happen. But that's why it's important. Like once you know the intruders are done with, to go back to green alert as soon as possible. Again, sorry to jump around. So we're talking about expansion, and so this was a gap. So kind of surveying. Okay, this is a gap. Single points of failure in your grid are not great. In the oxygen grid as well, but the game does make it so you do have this problem. This is a thing you have to solve on purpose, and I think that's cool. But then there's also redundancy in the kind of water electricity grid, and you can see here that was easier to kind of solve for. Because of this bed, so you might go like, well, hey, you have a laser here. We'll talk about lasers later. You have a laser here. Why didn't you just put another dome there? And then you would have had better redundancy. This biodome here still would have been this storage still would have been a single point of failure. Who's this? Oh, I turned colonists back on. Oh shit. Hold on a second. I'm going to increase medics for a second, and I'm going to increase biologists. What I want. Go and steal. Weird. One second. All right. I want 15% of those. I want 20% of those. There we go. So I just put my biologist mix by 5%, so that as colonists come, I'm gonna biologists are the ones that make the meat and the food. So I'm going to optimize for that for right now. I've got a lot of money, so I don't really need any visitors right now, I don't think, to build up money. So for the next landings, I'm going to favor more biologists and build that back up, because that's our little food kerfuffle has made me nervous. But notice that in the upper right there, the food icon, we're at 30 some odd, and it's going to 37, 38. That means we got a good supply chain going now. And our vegetables and our meat are staying mostly above 30. They're kind of going down and up. I still have them prioritized, and I think once they get back up into the 40s a piece, I'll change that. Here's a colonist ship. So we just got a couple more colonists. So we went down to 191 population, 191. When that gets up to 200 some odd again, I might revisit rebalancing this again so that it's we'll bump the workers. We'll basically take biologists down and workers up again. Trading ship has landed again, and I'm just overcompensating here potentially, but if there's meat or vegetables to be bought, I'm going to buy them. Nope. There isn't meat or vegetables to be bought. But I will sell some bioplastic and some starch, again, just to keep my cash reserves up in case of emergencies. I'm not going to sell any medicinal plants yet. Again, I want to keep like a cache of 10 of those. That's just an arbitrary number for me, but based on having 54 first aid kits for the population that we have, because a meteor can come down, there can be intruders, blah blah blah. So you need to have a good cache of first aid kits. And a reasonable cache of medicinal plants that can be converted into first aid kits at all times. Because once you get to a certain size, shit happens and it will affect more and more people. So I did that. Right, so this gap. So the other thing I want to talk about is, as it expanded to the other edge of this, map. And there's some weird things here. So you saw in the beginning how I added this oxygen because of the population, I guess. Again, the game does not make it clear why these units here were low on oxygen. But so I removed the existing unit here, the robot factory, and added oxygen. That seemed to solve the problem. Hooray. So again, just to reiterate that, because this oxygen thing isn't totally. You can have 315 people, but no, you can't. Or at least you can't have them too many people concentrate in one part of the grid. So this doesn't tell the whole story, and I don't think that's great. What you kind of have to do is you have to go to parts of the map, and as you bring up the R1 control, look at the O2 levels. See, like even now it's at 20%, which isn't max. Isn't the 21 or 22% that's ideal. Even though there's an oxygen thing right fucking here. And that's irritating to me. It's because I don't know what to do. And I'm kind of in a tight spot because there's kind of nothing else for me to put here. Like there's no room. I'd have to move a lot of stuff around. I'd have to just sell stuff or destroy it and rejigger this whole thing. Have to do, and don't be afraid to do that. You have to take one step back or two steps forward sometimes in this game, but that's part of the fun. But basically here, well, why did you put a solar panel there and then a windmill and then a battery? Well, I'm trying to keep my energy diversity up, and at the time I must have been solving for energy. And why did you put a tiny water extractor here? Well, this is the limit of what I could put here, and I had to find something small. And I basically looked at my grid output here, and I'm like, well, what's the smallest thing I could put there that will help my current constraint? And water was one of them. And that's also why I put a water tank here, because it would fit. The game would let me put that there. I probably would have preferred to put a solar panel there at the time, but it's what the game would allow me to do. And the fact that I have to guess at that is something I don't like about this game. I wish that if I were to build something here, I wish it would just tell me, here's what you could fit in this general area. But it's a guessing game where I kind of go like this, and then I move it around a bunch to try to guess what I could fit there. And it's like pixel hunting in adventure games. It's like, it's not fun. It's not the point of the game. Minor nit. Still a fun game, but just a little kind of UX thing there. So this is the edge of the map. This is the edge of the map. So we talked about earlier about, okay, well, I knew at the edge of the map, so I need dorms. I need bedrooms, basically, dorms or cabins. This was the first cabin I built in this map. So I knew along the edge here I would have some bedrooms and some or cabins and dorms, and I would have sick bay. I didn't have the population at the time to warrant making all of these bedrooms. So again, I was optimizing for constraints. Let me do the trading ship. Let me deviate for 1 second here. I'm going to buy more guns. I'm going to sell 2 bioplastic. I'm going to buy tons of meals. I'm just going to go overboard on meals here, which is going to totally get us out of the woods on meals. And I'm going to sell a couple medicinal plants, and there's nothing else to really buy. Did I sell starch? I can sell 1 starch. I don't know why I can only sell 1 starch. It's so goofy. Yeah, so with this, I think we're good on meals. And our kind of vegetable and meat production, I think the reason that is not getting way up there right now is that some biologists died. Basically, our mix of biologists, our ratio of biologists to the rest of the population isn't high enough right now. And we've kind of solved for that by bumping it up to 35. So I think we're in a good holding spot for now, and we'll just keep trading intelligently. And eventually, I think once we get back up to 210 population, we'll have enough biologists that we'll see that kind of right itself, and we won't have to do anything else. And then we can deprioritize the biodomes and the biodomes that are focused on food, and the labs that are focused on meat. And looking at our welfare, so we were into poor earlier because we were at like 50% or less because people were dying of starvation, and now we're into good and rising. So it's at 78%, and so if we can get back into excellence, I will be pleased. It's slowly rising, so I think we're in a good spot. We just need to keep an eye on our energy production and storage. We aren't expanding right now. We're in a steady holding state on expansion, so I think that we're good. I'm just going to continue to keep an eye on it. So water is something we're getting. Is that 62 or 52? That's 62. So we're pretty good on water, actually. So we're pretty good on just about everything. As I go through the map with you, I might notice some places where I need to put more oxygen or water for better redundancy, but overall I think that we're good. The goal is that by nighttime, the batteries are totally full. If they aren't, because if there's no wind at night, and that does happen, you kind of need your battery. Your batteries are your only source of energy, and so if they don't get to full by nighttime, then we need to add more solar so that during the day they'll fill up faster. Looks like it'll be fun. Let's get in there. So back to this. So this was part of the bounding box. And what I've found is with these little really narrow things, you basically can't get a hallway through there. The game won't let you do it. So it's easier. When you see these little nooks and crannies, that's like, okay, that's where I'm going to put some energy. That's where I'm going to put water, energy, generation, or batteries or stuff like that. But because those are single points of failure, you don't want to rely on those. Those are like bonus points. You want to have, there's no redundancy here to the rest of the grid. So, so you definitely want to make sure that your primary sources of power generation and power storage are redundant. And it looks like we hit 100%. Yeah. So we hit 100% before nightfall, so we're good on energy generation for right now. And we're good on energy storage because we haven't run out of anything. Gonna go trade. Just gonna, again, keep supplementing on meat. I think we're good on drinks for now. And I'm definitely not gonna sell any vegetables. And this person doesn't want any starch at all. And they aren't selling any guns. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. Got tons of bioplastic, but definitely want to have a good cache of that because most of the interior things you build, like beds for the sick bay or the cabins, or the meat generation things for the lab, all rely on that. So if you need to very quickly add beds because of a population thing, or add meat things, or add vegetable pods to your biodomes, you need a big cache of bioplastic for results. Energy and water and stuff, those kinds of things are the best things to put back here, or lasers, or satellites. But hallways, generally, the game so far, of these things that are this narrow, the game won't put hallways through these things. And then again, at the edge of the map, at the edge of that, I put a cabin, which is a dead end, and a airlock, which is also a dead end. Sort of. Yeah, it is a dead end, actually. It can only have one connection. And the thing with airlocks also, I'll point out, is, so my original airlock was, when I first started, was right there, where that control center is now. And as you build out, basically, to build stuff out here, people have to come out of the airlock over here, walk all the way over here, do the building or carry the resources, and then walk back. And when they're doing that, they are running out of oxygen in their spacesuits. And if you are careful, they will die on the way back. And you don't want that. And so just in the same way that we talked about, you want oxygen things to be, kind of 4 hops away from each other, you kind of you will eventually need to have airlocks that are also a certain distance on the map from each other. And so I think I had one out here somewhere that I eventually removed. I think I had one out here, and when I expanded over here and added this one, and I'll tell you why I did that in a second, I removed this other one. But I kind of optimized for the first airlock is the one that you have to add because that's where the ship is, and people have to have a way to get in. The other one, the other ones I optimize in 2 ways. One is I put them near a mine, because mines are going to generate ore, and you want the path between the mine and getting the ore. You want the workers to get out into the mine and have it be a short path, but also you want the distance to get the ore into the base where it can be processed to be short. So here what I did is I put a mine here, because that was where I expanded to. I put an airlock there, but even before the airlock, near the mine, once I had the mine there, I knew the airlock would be nearby. I put an ore processing plant. I put a processing plant here, and all these are metal processors. So that basically, the workers have a short path to get to the mine. Let me look at the trading ship real quick. Just again, I'm going to supplement meat. I'm good on drinks. Meals is still dropping pretty fast. So we were at 70 meals, and it's at 42. So I think I am going to just keep buying those for now, and I'm going to supplement on vegetables as well. And I'm going to sell, no, not medkits. I keep medkits. I'm going to sell 3 medicinal plants, 2 starches, and I'm good on the rest for now, I think. I do need to keep an eye on my cache and make sure I don't get cache poured at any point. So I built my mine here because that was kind of where I got to in my expansion. I wanted to kind of fill in this little space here before I expanded that way. Because in here, I can keep my grid and my redundancy. And I want to have that redundancy and be conservative with my redundancy and my risk before expanding out here. Because I knew once I started to get out to here, I would have a single path, a single point of failure somewhere. And I didn't want to get there until my population was really solid and I had a good amount of redundancy in terms of biodomes and factories and processing plants just within this space. So I built a mine here, and I was like, okay, that means two things. I want to have an airlock nearby and a bunch of metal processing nearby, so that the path, the inventory that needs to be carried from the mine, the ore, is a short path to carrying it to the processing where it gets done. And early on, what you will find is your big waiting thing, your big bottleneck that you are waiting for is metal. You can generate starch until the cows come home with your biodomes, have good bioplastic processing, but getting stuff out of the mine and generating metal will be your biggest bottleneck to expansion. Just building domes. And again, you don't want to build domes too fast, because if you do, you'll run out of energy. And if your population goes up too fast, you'll run out of food. So it's kind of a good thing, but this is the way I made it. So I had a really good pipeline of a mine next to an airlock, and that airlock's first link was a processing plant that is just full of metal processors. And that, I think, brings up a good segue into talking about that metal being the bottleneck there. So there's kind of two things. One is that you start with a population of 7 people, and they can die. Like a meteor can hit them, and then you are pretty screwed. Because there's not a lot of redundancy in your population in terms of roles. And so very quickly you will want to build a landing pad. This is a starport, but the first thing that you'll build is a landing pad. And that will allow colonists and traders of a certain size to land, but no visitors. And that is fine, because visitors drink your water, they eat your food, and if you aren't at a certain scale, a couple of visitors will basically teeter you into starvation if you're not careful. And once you build that, initial landing pad, again, you want to build landing pads near airlocks, because you're going to be doing trading, and as you can see, these people are carrying things in and out. What I've done, what I learned to do, is it's not just having an airlock near these things, it's having your storage near there, because if you're selling things to traders, basically it's going to be pulled from your storage, because you're going to be selling your excess, right? You're not going to sell things you're low on. And your excess ends up in storage. So having storage off of the airlock and airlock near the landing pads is a way to kind of optimize that workflow, because the longer people have to walk to ferry things back and forth, whether it's trading stuff to landing pads or getting stuff to mines, from the mine to a processing plant, the longer they're carrying that stuff, the longer they're not doing other work. And if any of you are lean software development nerds like I am, that's one of the 7 deadly wastes, which is the T in .NET, is transportation. The longer they're transporting stuff, the workers are transporting stuff, the more that they are not in the processing plant turning stuff into turning ore into metal, or let's see, soul starch, and I'm gonna sell some medicine, and they don't have anything I want to buy, so I'm good. So that's a transportation thing, and that takes time, and that's time that they're not doing that other stuff. And if you see like, oh, why am I not generating metal fast enough? Go look at what your workers are doing. Like zoom in and just like follow one of them and see what they're doing. You'll go like, oh my God, they are spending so much of their time just picking up an ore and taking it to a processing plant. Or if you don't have a grid like this, where you have a lot of path redundancy, they might have to go like a really long way down a bunch of hallways to get somewhere. Whereas if they had multiple paths, they might be able to take a shorter route. So that's another reason to have a grid, is to have options for transport. The other thing you might notice that I've done here with this landing pad is that I ended up putting 2 airlocks. So one of the airlocks hooks up to a storage, and the other one hooks up to a control center. I'll talk about that in a second. But I put 2 airlocks because what I found is that workers, only one can go in and out at once, and it's a huge bottleneck when you're doing large trades. And basically, workers will wait in a line out here, waiting to get back in. And while they're doing that, they are using up the oxygen in their spacesuits. And if they run out of oxygen, bad news bears. They will get unhappy. And so I put 2 here, 2 airlocks here to facilitate that. And that seems to be the rest. There still will be queues of people lining up, but they won't be so long that people get really low in oxygen and get really unhappy or die. So, like I said, your initial thing is a landing pad, and that landing pad is how you will do trades, and how you will increase your you'll turn on your colonist thing here, and you will, like I said, favor biologists first, 35% biologists, 5% medics, 0% guards. Uh-oh, armed intruders. Set it to red alert. And those little target icons are the intruders. And so I put to red alert, and everyone's going to swarm on them and hit them. People without weapons will hit them typically. You can see the standard people went to the armory and got some weapons out. This is why I keep buying weapons, because I'm not manufacturing them fast enough. And the game does something kind of shitty, in my opinion. Wow, 11 colonists have died. That's not great. When people who have a weapon die, you don't reclaim the weapon. I really dislike this. It makes for a lot of unnecessary thrash. And I think that was all the intruders. So that was a colonist ship that those intruders came on. So I lied earlier. Intruders can come from anything. And I think that's all of them. I'm going to wait a minute to see if there's any more that show up. So a trading ship has landed. While it's red alert, by the way, people won't go outside. So if you have a red alert or a yellow alert, people won't go outside to do the trades. And if they're not doing the trades, then and sell some starches and medicinal plants, and they're not selling meat or vegetables or meals. So I think I'm good for now. Yeah, I think I'm good for now. So I think that was it. So I'm going to go back to green alert. And I leave red alert on for a little while, A, to see if there's any more intruders, but also B, to make sure that the doctors are available to heal people who got shot. Otherwise, the doctors will go to sleep. The people will literally wait in the hospital, the sick bay, for them to wake up, and they might die in the meantime. So that's another good reason to keep red alert or yellow alert on for just a little while longer. Let me see, what was I saying? Right, so you build your first landing pad, and you're building up colonists. And what I did at first is I would turn on colonists, let 5 or 6 people come, and then I would turn it off, and then wait a couple days and see what shakes out as far as food, and as far as do I have enough beds. Beds are easy to kind of count. It's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. How many people do I have? And what I found is that if your bed capacity is about 50 to 70% of your total population, you are fine. People won't get too tired. You can see this guy here has a Z, or this gal, or presenting as female anyway, whatever, however they identify. So they're tired, but so after they're done maintaining the tissue synthesizer, which is at decent shape, so they're getting it up to better shape, they're probably going to go right here and go to bed. And their sleep thing is yellow. I don't know why they didn't sleep already. Maybe they're finishing their shift, or fixing this first. Is yellow, that's fine. When it gets to orange and then red, that's when you're in trouble. You can see here that they're also hungry, potentially. They're still green on hunger, which is the second meter there, but it's not yellow yet. So, and then they're hungry. So they might go eat and then go sleep, but they're also a little bit thirsty. And then there's the happiness thing. I'll talk about that in a second. That is important, but I want to finish the thing about the landing pad first. So building that first landing pad, and then optimizing again for biologists and no guards at the very beginning. The game will not give you intruders at the beginning, or I haven't seen it happen in my couple of dozen attempts to succeed. Optimizing for biologists, overproducing food, selling food to traders as you go, building up your war chest. Oh, that's cool. Flew right into the camera, basically. Was what I did. I overproduced on food, sold it off, built a good war chest, and that allowed me to purchase things like semiconductors before I had the capability to produce them in enough quantities. Here's another trading ship. I'm going to sell starch. I'm going to sell some medicinal plants. And by the way, if I was in a situation where I didn't have a lot of robots, or I was low on metal, or low on starch, or low on whatever, I wouldn't trade this small amount of stuff unless I was really poor. Because again, even with robots, when I'm doing this stuff, a robot has to take this stuff to that ship, and when it's doing that, it's not doing something else. But because we're in good shape on our food now, and because I got 96 robots, 40 of which are carrier robots, we have the capacity to do little trades like that. And I'm doing that just because I still got a lot of money, over 2,000 space bucks, but I want to get back up to 3,000 because, as you saw, that came in really handy when I was low on food, and I corrected for it by prioritizing biodomes in some of the labs, but that wasn't going to happen fast enough to avoid starvation. And so having that cash handy was good. So I'm just slowly building my cash back up. And actually, now that the food and the meat is in the high 30s, and the meals are in the high 50s and kind of stabilized there, I'm going to go and deprioritize these things. And what I found is that the workers will basically do the right thing, more or less. If you have enough like vegetable pads and enough meat labs and stuff for people to work at to fulfill the needs, they'll basically do the right thing. And so sometimes when you see your meat low, it's not that you need to prioritize the lab that has the meat, it's that you need to build more meat synthesizing meat synthesizing things. So some colonists. And let's see what we got. That's a worker. That's an engineer. That's an engineer, and that's an engineer. Interesting. I'm not getting more biologists. Here's my mix. So I got biologists at 35%, and we're at 33. That's okay, I guess. I don't think I need to set it to 40%. Just based on that, we're kind of stabilized on meals, seemingly, and meat, seemingly. Keep an eye on it. I'm going to deprioritize those things and let them make their own decisions. See how that goes. What I'm looking for is, you can see at a distance when a given unit has been prioritized. I'll go ahead and buy some. I'm just paranoid right now. I'm going to sell starch. I'll go ahead and sell 8 of these. 2290. I still have 126. I'm going to sell some ore. I feel good about the amount of iron I have. And I'll go ahead and sell 15 of those. So I'm getting $50 back on this. 50 space bucks back. Looking for some things I prioritized. Deprioritize that. Some over here. That was all medicine, so I didn't prioritize that. Here's this meat one. So I'm going to deprioritize this. And the thing is that when you prioritize things, that means they're coming here and not going to another lab, which means that the things in that lab might fall into disrepair. So that's another reason why it's good to kind of let them walk around of their own volition, because they'll kind of round robin these things and make sure that they're where's the spares? Oh, arms. What are we doing on arms? Yeah, I feel like, yeah. So all of our guards are armed. That's what that parenthesis means. I got 30 guards and 30 of them have weapons. But as we saw, having the gun lockers, what are they called? What the hell are those things called? I can't remember what the fuck they're called. Having the armory, having those full is very helpful, because when you go on red alert and regular colonists can pull weapons out of there, you can kill intruders much more quickly, which means less colonists will get killed, and that's really important. So let's see, let's pop off the stack. Going back over here. See, we were talking about the landing pad, talking about optimizing for biologists. Talked about at the beginning, add 5 colonists, get up to 10 or 12, turn it off. Wait and see what happens. See how things shake out. Build more vegetable pads to generate more meat tables in your lab to make sure that you're and possibly even more meal makers to make sure that people can eat. Eventually, you'll need to build another canteen because people won't be able to get enough seats at the same time. And just take that growth slow and wait 2 day cycles in those early days when you're going from single-digit colonists to double-digit colonists. I just really advise taking it slow and keeping a really close eye on things and trying not to multitask and expand too fast. That's what kept getting me into trouble. Trading ship. Let's see. Buy a gun. Put on steel. Put on that. Sell 6 of those. Sell 1 of those. And I'll keep the rest. So, I'm going to keep kind of going over this again and again because this is like a lot of information. So again, ship first thing, built the large power collector, built the large solar panel, built the medium water extractor, built the medium oxygen generator, and then built the airlock. And then right after that, first thing, built incoming transmission. The irradiated nuclear workers tend to radiation poison my people, and I'm not down for that right now. I'm still in delicate spots, so I'm going to say no. Building the canteen, building the meal maker in it, 1 meal maker, building 1 4-seat table, and one drinking fountain. That's it. Building 1 biodome. I built a large one up front. And then building 1 starch generating thing like rice and 1 regular thing like tomatoes. Don't build medicine up front. Is what I would advise. And then building a lab with meat tables. Again, you won't need to build medicine stuff right up front. Just make it all meat. You want to generate food, but you'll only need 1 meat table at the beginning, and then building a dorm. Do not build. Don't have your first thing be a cabin. Make it a dorm. In those early days, you need to make the best use of your resources. And when you build that dorm, with those first 7 colonists, you will only need 2 beds, and they will be able to sleep in shifts and do fine with that. See, the next step after that was to build the processing plant and build bioplastic processors. 1 bioplastic processor, because you built a starch generating plant, rice or corn or whatever you want, and you'll be generating starch. And so you might as well turn that into bioplastic. A lot of your interior things that you'll want to build will, these all requires, will be bioplastic. Like these beds, I can't build another one and there's no room, but it's just bioplastic. The tables in the canteen, bioplastic. The fountains, I believe, just bioplastic. The televisions, the video screens, bioplastic. The decorative plant, bioplastic. So you might go like, oh, I'm going to build a mine and build an ore processor. For this initial interior expansion of filling out the interior, filling out your canteen, filling out your biodome, etc. That's all bioplastic. So that's the first thing to build in your processing plant. And then once you're kind of stabilized with that, building your first mine. Once you got that mine and you've built up a little bit of ore, then you'll want to build a metal processor in the processing plant. But until you have a mine, there is no reason to build a metal processor in the processing plant. And that kind of gets you to self-sufficiency. I believe. And then the next thing that I did was I built a storage because, I think I'm a liar. Yeah, nope, I didn't. The next thing I built was I tried to get to building building the landing pad as quickly as possible, and so I could get more colonists. and I went slow on that. I did some initial trading, and I opted to basically overproduce food and sell it via trading to build up my cash reserves, and that allowed me to buy semiconductors. And you also end up buying patents for robots. You can buy robots, but you also need to buy patents for robots. You can buy patents for genetically modified tomatoes. And basically what I learned from my playthroughs is save up money, buy patents. Just take it easy, go slow, overproduce food, and save up your money to buy patents for things. That is the, just don't, unless you're going for those speed trophies, which I'd love to see a walkthrough somebody do to show me how to do that, because I don't see how it's possible right now. Oh, there's another trading ship. Just take it slow. Nothing to buy. I'll sell 2 of those and 2 of those. Actually, I'm going to sell 7 of these. Let me get back up to 3,000. So I built my, oops, wrong way. I get lost. It's so big now. I'm a little bit lost. So the landing pad, and then making sure you have your colonists set to front load biologists. So 35% biologists. Almost at all times is what I'm learning now. I had it at 30 earlier, and you saw I got into trouble still. So I think 35 is kind of the mix to have, because they're the only ones who can make food, and that and oxygen, whatever, is the main thing that keeps people alive. And for oxygen in the water, constructor bots can build oxygen. They can build water extractors and repair them, but no robot can grow food for some reason. I don't know. They can transport the food once it's grown, but they can't keep the pods going. Let's see. We talked about surveying and kind of planning your routes, these narrow pathways. Kind of planning for putting where you're going to put your mines, and then the airlocks, and making sure that your ore processing, your metal processing plants, your processing plants that are full of metal processors are right near the airlocks with the mines. Right. And so the other thing with so near the starports, the landing pads, you'll need airlocks so people can get in and out. But having a storage near those airlocks is key, because when you're trading, that's where most of the stuff you're selling to those traders are going to come from. So making that a short path is important. But as you saw with intruders, getting back to where I was originally trying to go with this, as you saw with intruders, what I ended up doing this round that I think has been really helpful is I'm going to turn off colonists for a second. We're at 244. I want to see the trading ship. I'm going to go ahead and buy a bunch of meals. And I'm going to sell some med kits just to get some iron. Let's see. Again, I'm just a little bit nervous about the food situation. I think we're actually really good now. High 30s, 40s on everything, and it just kind of stays there. Because it basically means we're meeting demand, more or less. But if it starts to dip into like the 20s again on any of those, then that means, oh shit, I gotta go build some more pads in my biodomes. I gotta go build some more meat synthesizing, what are they called? Tissue synthesizers in my labs, and build more biodomes and more labs. So we'll see what happens. What I ended up doing is, for any of these airlocks that are near these pads, traders are coming, colonists come in, blah, blah, blah. I build we talked about building 2 airlocks near those things so that there's not a bottleneck there, so people aren't waiting in line and then suffocating because they run out of oxygen. But the one I do for the other airlock that is near a landing pad is make that the control center, and that's where your security people are. And so you have you have a security console, and that kind of allows people to monitor, I guess, cameras that are throughout the base and allow them to spot intruders earlier. So building a control center, and the first thing you're going to build in there is a security console. That's important. So here I have 3 security consoles, 1 radio console, and I end up having 2 telescope consoles. I don't think I'm going to talk about telescope consoles today, but I'll talk about a little bit. So like I said, the security consoles allow them to detect intruders faster, and I don't have an armory in here. I'm just gonna fix that. Can I fix that? Oh man, there's just room right there. Wow. Yeah, I should have an armory there. That's an oversight on my part. Oh dear. Vegetables and meat are getting into the 20s again, which is not great. I think I have time to finish this explanation. So security consoles are important. You don't need to build an armory until you have more guns than security people. So, like we said here, there's 38 with the parenthesis 38. That means I have 38 guards, and the parenthesis is how many guns I have for those guards. And you want all your guards to be armed, because if they aren't armed, they are not going to be super helpful, frankly. I'm going to stop selling bioplastic. I will keep selling starch, though. And I found having the security near the entrance where the intruders come in, and then having a good number of these security consoles allows you to detect them before they get further into the base. And so you kind of want this choke point so that can happen, so that they can detect those intruders and fight them off more quickly. Really fast, the telescope console, you can build telescopes, and that little icon above this one here means that someone is observing on that telescope right now. You can see the second kind of little bar there for the details, the properties of this telescope, is at 97%. That means that there are enough telescopes and enough security people watching the telescopes that, 99%, that we're going to catch 99% of asteroids. We're going to know that they're coming, or sandstorms or whatever. And once you have telescopes and you have consoles, and enough security people also to staff those consoles, then you can build a laser. And what this means is that this laser is going to catch 99% of the meteorites before they crash into anything. And that's great. And this is another one of those things where it's part of the constraint solve, where it's like, how many security people do I need, blah, blah, blah. Well, first, you'll need security people just to help you fend off intruders. And once you have a landing pad, you're going to need them. But also with intruders, that's when people will get injured more often. But we talked earlier about in your biodomes not planting medicinal plants, and in your labs not making workbenches to make the medicinal plants for first aid. On the ship when you first land, you'll have 10 first aid kits or something like that. And so basically what I've done each time is I haven't built my first hospital until 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 someone gets sick, until someone needs it. So when one of those first 7 people gets, and it will never be the medic. I've never seen it be the medic. Once one of those first 7 people once one of those first people gets injured, I wait for them to get injured, and then I build my first sick bay. And I always build a small one, and you just need 1 bed. That's all you need. You don't need anything else in it. Again, start small. And then that gets built relatively, and you prioritize it. That gets built relatively quickly. The person gets healed, etc., etc. And that's long before you build the pad, by the way. Your first person will get injured within the first 10 days. It'll happen. So once you're kind of steady with your food, the game will break someone's leg, or they'll get injured somehow. You don't see it happen. They just all of a sudden get injured, and you'll need to build this. So you'll build that. You won't need to build a medicinal pad yet. You'll just need a sick bay and a bed. But once you do that, you'll then go to your biodome, build a medicinal pad, and once your med kits run low, then you'll go to your med kits that were built into the ship that you came on. Run low. You go to a lab and you'll build a desk. One workbench. Again, don't overproduce. Let me see. Well, I feel like that really, I've covered the basics of the starting point like 3 times now, and kind of the surveying to try to kind of plan ahead and do kind of city planning. Basically, it's kind of fun. It's a sim city, simulation, constraint solving kind of thing, which is kind of cool. And the other thing I'd say is, again, sometimes you gotta tear stuff down. Don't assume like, oh, my airlock was over here, now what am I gonna do? My original airlock was right off the oxygen thing here because it needed to be. Because you build the oxygen thing and then you build an airlock. That's the first 2 interior structures that you build. But once I built I kind of built out from there. I had my mine here. I built this way, and then I built this way, and then I had my landing pad. Once I had my landing pad there, I kind of removed my initial, sold it, recycled it, my initial airlock, because I had another one over here, so people could still get out. And I kind of moved it out a little bit. We talked about expansion over here, avoiding single paths to failure. The game seems to set it up in each landscape, no matter what, so that there's always one of those. Don't make it multiple legs of single point of failure, though. Get back to 2 and a grid as soon as you possibly can. On each side of the single point of failure, close to it, put oxygen. And water. And as quickly as possible, electricity, something that generates electricity, something that stores electricity. And again, like I said, this telescope initially wasn't a telescope, it was a battery. So that if this hallway or these connections got severed quickly, this side of the single point of failure wouldn't run out of oxygen and electricity and water immediately. So you can see here there's this little cul-de-sac here, and here's an irritating thing. See how this is as far as I can go. So even though it looks like there's more landscape for you to expand into, there isn't. And even though there's some space here, I can't put anything here, no matter how small it is. So you can't even build right up to the edge there. Really irritating. Not that there's limits, but there is space here, and I should be able to put a small thing right there. And elsewhere on the map, I was able to do that, but I can't for some reason. So I would say, explore the edges with your cursor here, and really, okay, up to there, minus 10 paces. That's as far as you're going to be able to go. Once I got to the other side of the single point of failure, and I had my oxygen, I had my water, I built out my electricity and stuff a little bit. I built a landing pad here. One thing, I built an airlock over here so that, because once I'm all the way over here, these airlocks are far enough away. People were walking on the outside way too long, and getting red on their oxygen and their spacesuits. So I built an exit for them over here, and then logically I was like, okay, well, if I need to build an exit over here, I'm going to have a security thing here. I'm going to have a... You know what? I chose not to... here's my... this is the closest storage that I got, and I made it massive. I built a security thing here because it was near a landing pad. The other thing, by the way, I ended up doing is I ended up building the robot factories, or the robots facility, also near the entrances, because when the robots go outside, especially in a sandstorm, they typically need repairs when they come in. And so having a short path to the robot repair from the airlocks is also a good idea, I found. Like there's a robot getting repaired right now, for instance. So I built an airlock so that as I expanded more over here, there wouldn't be too far of a way to go. I built an airlock into this cul-de-sac because I knew landing pad and then it was going to be electricity. I didn't want a single point of failure to any habitat and stuff. And then I built another oxygen over here. And then I built another airlock here, again, just to make it so that there was one near to make sure that there was two near the landing pad, for trading purposes, but also just so people wouldn't have to walk too far. And this little cul-de-sac here, I made from the airlock. It can only have one interior connection, but it can have multiple exterior ones. So both a solar panel there and a battery there. And look, it looks like there's room. Oh, nope, there's no room. That's the edge of the map. Yeah, and so that kind of constraint of making sure there's enough beds for the population, making sure there's enough canteens and meal makers for the population. I didn't talk about happiness yet. So bars with drinks, making sure there's tables, water fountains so people can stay hydrated. But also TV screens, video screens is a happiness thing. The other thing that's a happiness thing is... Where's my first one? So you can build a bar, but you can also build a... what is it called? Also build a multi-dome. I end up almost always building the medium ones because then you can put 2 of the treadmills in there, and 2 exercise bars, and a couple benches, a couple drinking fountains, and then a couple video screens. These recreational things will keep people happy. That's that rightmost icon on the people. And if you don't have enough of those, basically if those things are busy all the time, people won't be able to get enough recreation in, and then you'll start to see them get unhappy. Like this guy has a orange unhappy. He's going to a drinking fountain. That'll help his... And then he's an engineer. So his hydration thing is going up. He's going to eat. That'll get his meal thing up. And let's see. I'm going to speed up the game a little bit. See what he does once he eats his meal. And now he's going to his bunk to sleep. Oh, because he is tired. So I don't know what's going to make him happy. Maybe he just needs to sleep. I don't know. So that's another level of the constraint solve, is having enough recreational things. And so, yeah, so there's a spatial thing, there's a grid thing, making sure there's enough redundancy. There's a spatial thing, making sure you know that the path from the biodomes where you generate starch to the bioplastic processors is short, making sure that the path from the mines to the airlock to the processing plants where your metal processors are is short, making sure that the path from your storage to your airlock to your landing pads is reasonably short. Trade some stuff here maybe. I'm not going to buy any more meals. I think what we're learning here is that we're on the cusp of food generation for our colony here, and I need to fix that. So I'll go fix that in a second. And I think I am good on money for now. I think I'm gonna sell starch just for grins, but so there's a lot of things to think about, and it does take iteration. And you will definitely die. I don't think there's a way to do this game and then get it right off the bat. But maybe if you follow some guide, or maybe just watching this will help other people get it right the first time. But yeah, working backward from the geographical constraints, I kind of run like electricity and things along the border, and then reversing from there, put my dead end things right up against those, and like we talked about, not always. These aren't like hard and fast rules. Like I built a cabin here as a dead end, but then even though this is up against a wall, I made this a robotics facility. That was the first robotics facility that I built, because I started what. I'm glad I mentioned this. Another part of happiness is when people are working too much, basically. And so when you're like, why are people unhappy? It's because there's not enough robots. That can absolutely happen. And so robots, you need semiconductors, so you need to build a factory. Your first factory, you should absolutely build spares first. Once you got a good set of like 10 plus spares at the ready, to be able to repair stuff as you need it, you can build a bot workshop. Those first robots that you have in your spaceship will break down almost immediately. I feel like one of the speedrun tricks must be to build a robot workshop with a repair thing faster, so that those robots don't break down as fast. But I've yet to be able to build a robot workshop quickly enough before those robots break down. And I'm not sure what the right ratio is. I've got excellent welfare right now, so maybe people aren't 100% happy because there's not enough robots. I got 244 people and almost 100 robots. That's what it could be. It could be that I don't have enough gyms or recreational facilities. That's definitely a possibility. But there's not enough. It's at 90%, so it's not a problem for me to solve right now, I don't think. Definitely with where my next problem to solve is my meat is sticking in the high 20s, but with the amount of people I have, I need it to be higher, so I'm going to go fix that in a second. But I did hit a thing where once I was like 50 people, and I had 10 robots, and the robots broke down, and I wasn't making new robots fast enough, and people started to get unhappy, and I'm like, what's wrong? And that's when I realized the game did not tell me this. Maybe it's in the documentation somewhere, but it wasn't. I basically figured out by reasoning about it to myself that, oh, well, they have to do a lot more work now because the robots are gone. So let me build more robots. So I prioritized semiconductors and robots, and then people got happy again. The other thing with robots is that, not expansion, robotization. So build or purchase 10 bots. That's one of the milestones. And what you will find when you get to 10 robots is that things seem to go much, much faster. And part of it is because the robots are carrying stuff around, and that means the people can focus on processing ore or making bioplastic or whatever. And so you'll go like, wow, I have so much more metal now. I have so much more bioplastic now. And that's because the robots are doing the menial work. So getting to 10 robots is definitely pretty important. And so that's why I was saying when trading, kind of overproducing food, getting a good getting a good amount of space bucks. Will kind of allow you to buy semiconductors before you even have any semiconductor workshops, and that allowed you to get robots going faster. The other thing I would say with robots is building a bot workshop is the first thing you'll want to do, but you will very quickly want to build a repair shop, which I don't have in here. I'm gonna fix that. Build a bot auto repair. Because the robots do wear down, and if they wear down to the point where if they do wear down and can't get to a repair facility, they will break completely, and you just need to build a new one, and that is very wasteful. And as I mentioned, having a bot facility near an airlock that has repair pads, robot repair, is highly recommended. Because if they're damaged and they have to travel a long way to bot repair, they will break down on the way there, and then they're gone forever. So, let's see. So mid-80s. So we're pretty good. We got almost 100 robots. You see here's some robots that are fixing themselves. See his repair meter is going up. It's excellent, but robots can also get hit by like here's a robot that just totally broke down. So it said. They can also get hit by meteors outside even. So this was where I started, and I expanded out this way, and I kind of stamp out this pattern. In each I fill out this part of the map, make sure I'm building enough biodomes, labs, processing plants for plastic, processing plants focused on, like I said, once I built more than one processing plant, I specialize them. So if I just want to boost metal processing, I can do that. If I just want to boost bioplastic processing, I can do that. And part of the reason I'm so rich with bioplastic right now is because I did do that a long time ago, actually, and I just have a huge inventory of it now, which is not a bad thing. Same thing with the factories. So this factory is specializing on semiconductors, so I can just boost semiconductors, more or less. And then this lab over here is focused on workbenches to make medicine, and that is near-ish. Actually, it's not. It's not near a hospital, but I tried to do that. The only reason there is a meat one in here is because in the labs, these tables have to be along a wall, and these hallways remove walls, and so the medicine workbenches are just a little bit wider than the tissue synthesizers. So this little section right here, the only thing that would fit there is a tissue synthesizer. So just to make the most use of the space, I put a tissue synthesizer in here. But when I boost this, most of that boost is going to go to these medicine workbenches, which is what I want. And so it's cool. It does allow you to kind of specialize. And then I fill up the nooks and crannies here. Trading ship. What do we got? I'm still just mostly now. I think I'm good on food. I think I just want to buy guns when I can and sell my excess starch when I can. Let me know where I'm going for here. So I won't repeat myself anymore. We'll take you on the journey. So I built my satellite. That's how I receive radio communications from people asking for help. Like, some stranded space travelers need help. They'll come in, they'll need medical attention maybe, or maybe they'll be hungry, or maybe they just want to sleep. And you can get money that way on an ongoing basis. Now that my food is stabilized, I'm actually going to turn on colonists and visitors again. So I expanded through this gap here, like I mentioned. Expanded out over here. Here I've got a canteen. I got a processing plant that's split between ore and plastic. Got an oxygen. Got a factory. And because the factory, the semiconductors, the guns, and the spares take iron as their input, I put those near the metal processor so that there's just less transportation time. And then for the robot factory, those take semiconductors to work, so I put those near the factories that have the semiconductors. Here's another gym for the multi-dome and cramped stuff. TNT, there's an oxygen processor. Again, oxygen processor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the other one for redundancy, but also, as we've seen, as the population density increases, you need to have them not just for redundancy. So again, this number here for oxygen isn't a lie exactly, but does not tell the whole story by any stretch. I feel like it's almost a proactive misrepresentation of things. I can't build any more here because that hits the edge of the map, even though there's no physical thing. So I got through this little constraint here, and then this next space to get to the next. Here's another one. So, and this one sucks because I have two, actually more than two. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I had to do one corridor here, another single point of failure, and another single point of failure to get to here. And so immediately coming out of there, I put an oxygen. Here's an airlock. Again, I put that there. There's no pad here, just because the walk people had to do to come all the way out here to build started to get to be too much. So I put an airlock there. So I have an oxygen on this side of the single point of failure, and another oxygen on this side of the single point of failure. And here's a little cul-de-sac, and I just kind of filled it in with whatever would fit, more or less. Lasers actually have a pretty wide area of coverage, but they have a cooldown, and that's the main reason that you would need multiple. And I built a medium power collector there because only a medium would fit, or a small one would fit, but I tried to build it as big as I could. So on the other side of this single point of failure, I was able to do something pretty neat, if I do say so myself. So here's where I started. And what I was able to do is, there's a wall here, but by putting a mine in there, on the other side of that wall, I was able to connect power to that mine. And once I had that link, then I was able to spread out over here. And I wasn't able to build interior connections, but I was able to start to build energy out, build some water, etc. And that's a single point of failure, which made me super duper nervous. So that was a risk. But once I expanded my interior connections over here, I was able to kind of meet this on the other side. So you can see here, my interior, this factory has a little connection here to a mine over here. That mine connects to this telescope. That telescope connects to this solar panel, and then that connects over here. So now I do have redundancy. It's kind of come full circle. So if this goes down, this one connection here goes down, all these resources will still be connected to the grid on that side through this grid here. And with all the lasers I have, it's unlikely two single points of failure would be hit at once. It is usable. So that's cool. So yeah, so I expanded over here. I ended up building the pyramid. Do not build the pyramid or the sign, these kind of vanity things that build up your... Do not do that until you are sitting pretty. They take a shit ton of resources and to build at all, the pyramid and the monolith. And they actually use a lot of power, potentially. I built the monolith too quickly, and I ended up selling it, building out my energy production some more, and then rebuilding it again. So be super conservative with that. Let's see. So here's the next big expansion space, and this is about it. So it says this is the edge of the map. Like, notice how it lets me go out here? That's bullshit. I'm not going to get past this wall with my interior structures. And if I go right here, that's the end. So that's the kind of edge of where I can build, but 10 paces before that. So that's the edge of where I can build. And so what I'm doing now is I'm kind of using this to build out my energy. And this is single point of failure, which sucks. I'm going to see if I can come around this way and make this a circle, connect back to this telescope here. But I'm at the edge of the map. But the only thing I have left to do is to reach consolidation, which is population 300. I'm at 257 now. I'm not at bed capacity yet. So I think if I just build out labs, biodomes, beds, and a couple more canteens, and maybe a gym and a bar, that'll be it. So you can't expand infinitely, which I think is good, because I think it would get pretty unmanageable actually with intruders and stuff like that. And I got 104 bots. That's awesome. My welfare is at 75%. I feel like I don't know if it's bots or a lack of bars or what. So I'm gonna fix that. But yeah, that's what I did. It puts you through bottlenecks into another open, and then through to another open area. And this is kind of the last open area. And I was able to kind of make these two seemingly disconnected open areas connect by doing this trick of putting the mine here, and then that allowed me to kind of wall jump there. Click on energy. Still doing okay. So that was great. I came through this bottleneck here, had my oxygen, had my mine. I was like, okay, I'll put a mine here. That'll be my link over here to the rest of the grid. That means I'll need to put an airlock right about there. That means I'll want to have my processing plants really close by. I screwed this up. I meant to put a processing plant here and a factory here and the robot factory here, but I got these reversed for some reason. So, but the thing is that they're one hop away, so the transportation time is still very low. Well, here's some hungry people. They're happy about everything else, so I think I need to build more canteens and more labs and more biodomes. That needs to happen. So, what else I want to talk about? I put another mine here for some reason. I don't precisely remember why. I think it was probably just because I had an airlock here and a landing pad here, and I was like, and I might have been running low on iron because I was running low on ore, so I just made another one. Note that that's a robot bringing the ore in. And then this little, looks like, oh look, you can expand over here because, bonk. So that was a dead end. So when I realized that that was a dead end, I optimized this for dead end things, so that's why that's a bunk, that's why that's a hospital. And I kind of did a small water tank and a small water extractor and a small power collector just to fill out right up to the boundary, because I couldn't build anything larger. But that's why these are mostly dead end things here. I'm just building out to the end, there. And I did put, there is a single point of failure right here. That's why there's an oxygen there. That's why there's a water there. That's why there's a power collector there and a water tank there. So I feel like it's in a solar. That's why I feel like it's a pretty good shape. In case that wasn't obvious. So this is all I have left to expand in. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I have an oxygen thing here. I'm going to looks like I need to build, so I've got a lab here that has some meat stuff in it. I think I need to build maybe one more meat thing over there. Just based, again, looking in the upper right corner, I got 23 meat, 34 meals, and that's good. Like, that's a good holding thing, but I'm going to add 50 people to the population, and that's not good enough. They'll become borderline. What'll start to happen is the food and the vegetables and the meat will start to drop into the teens. You'll see the meals start to drop into the 20s, and then people won't be able to get enough food fast enough. That's what'll start to happen. Bioplastic is holding steady at about 120. My steel's holding steady as well. So between spares, making semiconductors, and making weapons, it looks like those are at just about the right levels, so that's good. And my robot population is still expanding. It's at 103. My limit is... My robot limit is 100. I'm actually going to bump that up. Oh, it's 100 or infinity. Okay. So I'm going to bump up my spares to 100 and bump up my semiconductors to 30, bump up my guns to 25. I think I'm happy with my medical supplies. I'll bump it up. I don't want to put bots at infinity just yet. I'll do that in a minute. Actually, I don't think I want to do that at all. What does infinity mean? What would they do? Where would they go? I don't know. That's interesting. Maybe I'll play with that later. But yeah, the game does a good job of tutorializing. You know, you can press R1 and then go to the question mark. Definitely go and read these things. So that there's this help here, but there's also see also. Definitely go into the see alsos and just kind of read this stuff. And the world stops while you're doing that, so you can't multitask. But it was useful for me to do that. Some things became clearer to me. It's a lot of information, and some things became clearer to me as I played the game. I kind of reread some of that stuff. So let's see. So I built a meat desk there. So I'm in a good spot. So I'm going to speed it up to 4x again. And we're seeing the meals. Okay. High 20s. But it is totally borderline. So I'm going to slow it down one more time. I'm going to go fill in my existing biodomes with, what is this one? This one is lettuce, rice, mushrooms. So this is a general, this is a food one. It's not focused on starch. So I'm going to add some more GM tomatoes, genetically modified tomatoes, genetically modified onions, some more radishes, some more mushrooms. One thing, subtle thing, and I'll add rice. I'll add one starchy thing. Yeah, there it is. So now I think it's totally filled in. One thing is that with the meat, something to pay attention to. If you R1 on that, they produce chicken by default. And if you don't have a diversity of meats, people will get unhappy or for diversity of food. So don't just do all genetically modified tomatoes or all lettuce or all whatever. You do need to have a variety to keep people happy. So I'm actually going to change this one to pig. And that one's chicken. These are all chicken. So I didn't change them from the default. So I'm going to change this one to cow. So it's fake cow. So that might be why people are unhappy. Part of it, possibly. So let's see. Oh, and there's still a little more room even in here for another meat desk in here. So I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a medicine workbench in here. So it's still fairly specialized, but just in case I lose access, if one of my single points of failure makes me lose access, I'll still have the ability to produce here. Tell me mushroom pad got built, blah, blah, blah. So I've added a couple, I added a meat table, meat synthesizer, added a couple of vegetable pads. I think all my other ones are totally full. Yeah, like this one, because these tables have to have a wall, that's totally full. That's one reason we put meat ones, not in a four-way stop, a four-way thing. Yeah, I think these other biodomes and labs are all totally full. Oh, this one's not. This one's not totally full yet. Oh, and it's actually still prioritized. Stop that. So I'll add another Metasaurus here. On the edge. And is this totally full? That biodome's totally full. I think this one is also totally full. Yeah. So I'm gonna go build another. Let's see what we got over here. So there's that biodome, and it's right next to the canteen. Again, minimal transportation. Same thing with this lab. This lab is right next to the canteen. Again, minimal transportation. Oh, there's two labs. Oh yeah, because this one almost has no walls. Oh, armed intruder. So we're gonna go here. We're gonna go to red alert. Going to. Stand there and do nothing? Colonists are supposed to beat them up? Oh, that's actually an intruder, okay. So yeah, so here's an intruder punching them. Or here's a colonist punching them. Because they don't have a gun. I don't have a gun. That armory is not... That armory has guns in it. I think that's it for intruders. I'm going to keep it on for another second. Just so the doctors are on duty. So back to over here. So I've got a canteen here, and the canteen's connected to the gym, to the multi-dome. That multi-dome could have some more stuff in it for sure. But I'm going for food right now, just because I'm a little bit nervous about that. So if I make, I've got a storage here, a mine there. So thinking about it, if I'm going to replicate my same patterns here, I've got a couple of constraints here. One is here's my edge, and I've built my energy along the edge like I typically do. So here's my building off point. If I build out this way, I could probably build straight out. Let's just verify that I could do that. So if I build a biodome, so I can't build a huge. Well, I can. Pretty close. So I'm gonna kill this before I actually do it. Let's see what I can do here. And can I build a bed there? I can't. Or I can right there. That's probably kind of good medium one. Whew. I really want to use this space. So I think what I'll do is I will build not a crazy one, but a slightly less crazy one. So that's as close as I can get. Some still experiment here. And can I build something in this dead end? Okay. Can I build a big one in that dead end? Yes. Okay, so that's what I want to do. And I'll connect that in both those places. Cool. So what that's going to allow me to do is, so I'm going to build another biodome where I can grow a very large one, so it's still huge, where I can grow food. Let me turn off the red alert. A lot of people are going to be unhappy. Yeah, people are unhappy because all the medics and security people had to stay awake while the red alert was on. So biodome's going to get built. The cabin, the dorm is at the end of the road. So it looks like I will be able to build one more out this way. So maybe I'll do another canteen out this way. And then I will build a actually, that canteen also might be the end of the road. Trading ship. You got guns? No, you do not. Also, you can start. Oh, interesting. My steel and my bioplastic are not maintaining anymore. Because I've just built a bunch of stuff. So maybe they'll go back up. But that probably means I have starch and I have ore. That means I just need to build more processing plants for those. Whoops. Sorry. That probably means I just need to build more processing plants for those. For those two items. I'm not running out of the raw materials. I'm just not processing them fast enough for my builds right now. So I need to do that. And that also, but I'm building a lot, and I was already kind of worried about my energy, as you might recall. I had to build a solar panel so my batteries would stop running out. So I probably need to build some more energy things, and then go build some more processing plants. and then I can continue on my thing with my lab and my canteen. What I can do in the meantime is I'm gonna sell my starch. What do you got? You just have ore. I don't need ore. I need raw materials. I'm gonna sell two medicine plants. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna sell for now. So, back over to here. So I built a biodome because I want to get more vegetables in play. Because I'm building a biodome, I want to put a canteen nearby. And so I think what I'll do is I'll put a canteen right about here and connect it here and here to keep the grid going. And then from that canteen, I will build another meat lab, probably right about here, and connect that here and here. And then probably another gym, and then another dorm or cabin, just to make sure we can get up to 300 and have enough places for people to sleep. Yeah. So, but before I build out any more stuff, first of all, I'm going to speed this up. I feel like we're in a good spot, so I'm going to speed it up to 4x. And note the vegetables, by the way. The vegetables and the meals are already correcting pretty well because we added a couple more vegetable pads to our existing biodomes, and we added a couple of meat things to our existing labs. So that's working out well. So I'm going to build out my energy. So I'm already producing enough energy to fill up the batteries before the sun goes down. So what that means is that I need to build, I need to build another battery, right? Because I'm kind of overproducing during the day right now. All right. Come on, baby. It's very finicky sometimes. It can be really frustrating. So I'm going to build one battery, and I'm going to build, whoops, not an interior, I can't do that. And I'm going to build a windmill. Let's see what I can do here. All right, so there's the edge. Shit. Man. So let's see. What can I build here? Yeah, this is what's frustrating. See all this space? This is the smallest windmill, and I can't build shit there right now. That is bothersome. So, let's see. Can I build... Try a trick. Can I build a mine right there and have it connect to that telescope? Is that something we can do? I think the answer is no. Yeah. And here's the thing. I just have to like browse around like this and move this all around and see if I can get a line. A snap to grid would be very helpful, because this is just this isn't fun. So shit. Well, that's it. I thought I had this space here, but let me do this. Let me recycle this. Let me go smaller. Yeah. Let me go smaller. So that's the biggest one. Go smaller. And I've got to wait for them to pick these parts up and move them out of the... This game is frustrating. Sounds like they're building the biodome over here. That's great. Yeah, so I'm gonna... So our meat and meals are like way low. So I am going to turn off colonist and turn off visitor. So we're down into the teens on meat and on meals. That is bad news bears. And there's intruders, of course. When it rains, it pours. Fortunately, this guy doesn't have anything. So I want to. So I don't want to sell him anything. I want to clear up this landing pad immediately, so that potentially another trader can come who might have food. So you can press square to dismiss, and they'll leave right away, hypothetically. Yeah. Intruders have been killed. Let me go and turn on red alert. Where is it? So there's the intruder there. Robots don't do shit. It bothers them. Okay, we'll leave this on for a second. Alright, so we're at 268. And so we reached our kind of food capacity faster than I thought that we would. So what I do? So there's a couple of things. So one is I need to not forget what I was doing. So if I build a smaller one, does that help? Does that then allow me to build a smaller one here or here? No. So if I build a smaller one, so it won't let me go over there. Like that's as far over as I can go. Can I pull it in? Let's try that. Actually, I don't want to build a solar panel. Oh, I want to build a goddamn battery. Okay. So that's... Oh, look at this. The battery, I can kind of clip into this a little bit more. Does that help me? Let's find out. Holy shit, okay. Alright, well that's better than a kick in the face. So, see? And I had a connection and now I can't get it again. God damn it. This is really frustrating part of this game. This happens all the time in these kind of tight spots. So if I make it small even. Alright. I'm going to turn off my red alert. I feel like everybody's probably good. Alright. That's a medium power collector. Let me recycle that. Let me try... Wait, small, medium, large. Try a large. Alright, and so if I do a large, can I still get a wind thing in here at all? And the answer is no. Seemingly no. As previously discussed. It's like, oh, I got red, I got green lines, and then, oh, holy shit, there it was. Alright. Can I get it with a medium? No. Seemingly not. And then this is the pixel hunt. It's like, okay, where was the attic? Ah, fuck. Where's that exact spot? So this is in this phase of the game on this planet, the the wind is not necessarily plentiful. So, but I think I'm just trying to be. Oh, hold on a second. If I have a choice, I want it to be... Oh, see? Why wouldn't it let me do that before? That's irritating. I'm gonna have some redundancy there, just in case, even though this is all single link right now. But I think what I'm gonna try to do is to circle this back around to here. I think that would be very smart of me to do. So once this battery gets built, I'll build some more domes out like we talked about. But for now, I think what I'm going to do is build out here. And these things do use some electricity. So I don't have a starch problem right now. So I'm going to do GM onion and genetically modified onion, genetically modified tomato, mushrooms, radishes. Again, after a certain point, you need the diversity. Otherwise, people get mad. So I'll do a couple of starches in here. And then we'll see what happens. So let's go to the trader ship here. I'm good on drinks. I can't build my meat lab immediately. I gotta wait for that energy to build first. So I'm gonna buy some meat from him, and then I'm also just gonna buy some vegetables. Again, we're in a spot where I just want to be conservative about this because we're almost at 300, really close. And I'll sell some starch, and I'll sell some ore. And we're almost back to 3,000 space bucks, and so I feel like I think we're in a good spot. So I'm not going to go overboard trying to figure out how to trade more. Cool. So that's actually not too bad. I'm going to squeeze 2 more things in here. It looks, again, these things look more spacious than they are. It's like 10 paces back from the limit, which is it is what it is. So the GM pad's being built. We got really good amount of biologists now, so I feel like none of our pads, none of our biodomes have any. Oh shit, there's a biodome here I could expand on immensely. In fact, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. What I got in here? I got lettuce, radish, tomato, medicine, rice. So I think I'm going to put some peas in here. Peas. And more onions. Got a lot of tomatoes. Mushrooms. Radishes. So between this biodome, I missed this one entirely, and building that new one, I think will be pretty great. Now it's just a matter of the labs. So what things got built? So these things got built. This dorm doesn't have its corridor yet. So we need to. This dorm doesn't have its corridor yet. So it's building that first for some reason. It's weird. I can't build beds in here until that's there. I don't need to build beds quite yet anyway, I don't think. Oh, people are unhappy. It's food. It's related to food. And where is my battery? Trading ship has landed. All right, trading ship. What do you got for me? Oh, you got meals. All right, I'm going to steal meals from you. I'll buy them from you, rather. Sell my starch. Oh, should I buy vegetables? Can I buy meat? I'd rather buy meat. He's got lots of vegetables. I'm gonna go ahead and buy vegetables. I'm still got a good amount of cash. So I'll sell some more ore, and I'll take my medicinal plants down to 5. I'll even sell a couple of my first aid kits to even that out a little bit better. Oh, guns. Oh, well, fuck. Alright, so we are going to be swimming in vegetables. And so I think meat's going to be the... Am I going backward? I'm going backward. Oh, this is the arms workshop. Yeah, I'm still trying to produce guns. For some reason, this even though this is prioritized, it's not getting a lot of love. I don't know why that is precisely. I'm gonna speed this up. There we go, so get constructed. Incoming transmission. Small group of wounded soldiers needs medical attention. Sounds good. I've got plenty of med kits. And usually, sometimes these things aren't about making money, but getting paid for them use of your services. It increases the prestige, which is this number here. Poor. Oh shit. What the fuck is going on? What is going on? Alright, hold on a second. Let me just buy a ton of drinks. And can I buy meats? I can't buy meats. Got tons of spares. Doing good on everything else. I'm not going to buy any more vegetables right now. I think we're actually really good on vegetables. This will be very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and buy some iron to help speed up our build out. So what the hell's going on? Is it food? Alright. So this is a bar. This is a canteen. Can I build another? Okay, so our meals is up to 40 now. This is a this meal maker is totally empty. Cool, our power collector's been built, so we'll build out our next canteen in a second. That's drinks. This is that's a meal maker. Can I stick another meal maker in here? That'd be swell. No. You know, I wish what it would do is show me when I selected the unit I want to build. In here, I wish it would show me just snap to the only place it could go and tell me if it can't at all. Because again, this is not the fun part. Let's see, I got another canteen over here. There's a smaller one. Maybe I can do something. Okay, so now it's back to decent, but we're not out of the woods yet. I'm gonna buy another gun. Gonna buy a bunch more meals. Sell some starch. Good on drinks. Don't want to sell any vegetables. I'll go ahead and buy some steel, again, just to accelerate our build a little bit. And we have a bunch of spares and semiconductors, so we're good on that front. Our bot population has dropped under 100. And I wonder if that's a contributor. It's everybody's hungry. Oh, that sound was the laser killing something. Oops, killing something. Hold on here. I do get lost, so like I end up having going back to the beginning and following a path. Sorry if that seems dumb. Let's see. So I built another biodome, but see how these branches above it? It's not getting enough love, and so these things are falling into disrepair. I don't want to prioritize it actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I'm going to build 2 beds just to see if anybody ends up sleeping there. Because if no one's ever sleeping there, then there was no point in building more beds. But the thing I need to do now, I believe, is to build another canteen. I'm going to build a big one. And I'm going to build it this way. So I think I can get one more lab over here. Is this a bar or a... It's a bar. So I can get another lab over here. Can I get a big one? Come on. There we go. And... Cool. So that should solve our problem. So let's see. So at nighttime, we got pretty far down on our storage here. So I'm going to monitor that for a minute. So I'm going to prioritize the lab first. I go to the trading ship. Sure, I'll buy another gun. And I think I'm good on steel for now, based on the immediate things that we need to build. And I'll get rid of some ore, sell some starch, get rid of some medicinal plants. I'm not going to sell any meals or vegetables because I'm not stupid. And bioplastic is maintaining. It's drop below 100, but it's not getting worse. So I think we're pretty good there. And basically, for a steady state of just like, if I shut down colonists, visitors, and ignored all radio transmission, colonists, visitors, and traders, if I shut everything down and got rid of my landing pads, iron will still be used because you're still going to be making spares to keep everything running. And you're going to need to keep making semiconductors so that you can keep building robots as they break down. And bioplastic is required for that also. And so I think there's a way to have a self-contained, self-sustained thing here. I think that's totally possible. That's weird. I prioritize this other thing, but they're doing this one first, even though there's a pathway here. Seems incorrect to me. So let's see how we doing on our. So in the middle of the day. And so we'll fill up. We'll fill up our batteries by the end of the day. So just waiting for them to build stuff out, and then I'll build the meat lab and stuff like that. I feel like got a water thing here. How are we doing on water? 50 out of 57. That's a little close. So I think what we need to do is do another water, maybe another battery. And then that'll kind of connect these together. That'll bring us full circle here. Too bad. You know, when I was like browsing around, like, oh, look at all this space. I could put a mine here and loop it back this way, but. You do. Thank you. I will take your meat. And I'll even take your vegetables. I don't need any drinks. Any food? You do not. I will sell you some ore and some starch. And maybe even some medical supplies. Because we are down into the low 2000s in space bucks now, so getting a little not nervous precisely. We're still doing pretty good. And the reason we're low is because we hit another choke point with food. So I'm going to speed this up. Keep a real close eye on the meals and the food and stuff. Alright, so there's our lab. Alright, and build that fucking stairwell. What did you put right there? What is that? Why is that there? Alright, and we are going to build a bunch of meat. Unfortunately, with where that is, there's just some dead space there. But because we're up against a rock here, this whole wall. Alright. So maybe we just overbuilt there for meat, but again, if you're overproducing food, you can just sell the crap out of it to traders. So and let's see. So look at the power. Like, we've got all these windmills, and they're barely doing anything. And the game does this on purpose. Alright, here's another trading ship. I'm going to buy some more meals. Same thing as last time. So now you've seen this happen twice. So I'm just gonna buy meals until I'm really comfortable with this. So I'll come back on after this ends, and we'll see how it went. If anybody watched this, thank you, I guess. Let's see, broadcast settings. I want to stop.